You're going to turn over to Bob, and he's going to be the moderator and keep the questions, well, keep things going.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob.
Okay, I'll start by introducing our distinguished guests. First of all, on my far left, this is Robb Serviss. He's had a multitude of hockey careers. He played in the OHL for Sudbury. He played in the CIS for Windsor. He had a long career professionally playing in Europe and the Netherlands, and then for several years, over a decade, I believe, was coach of the Netherlands national junior team. He's come back to Windsor and he's coaching the OHA and the junior C level, and now he runs the A21 Prep Academy out of Windsor, which, as it says, is a prep school for hockey players. To my immediate left, this is Perry Wilson. Perry is currently the goaltending coach for the Windsor Spitfires. One of his top pupils, Michael DiPietro, was Canada's goalie at the most recent World Junior Championships. And Perry has a unique hockey experience as well. For a couple of years you were over in New Zealand. He was 5 years he was the goalie coach for the New Zealand Ice Hockey Federation. So I thought both these guys give us some interesting perspectives on hockey and emerging markets that maybe we don't associate with the game. So start with you, Rob. And I should also mention Rob's dad, Jerry, played for the '63 Bulldogs when they won the Allen Cup. And fortunately, Rob remembered, because I forgot, his dad's grandfather, Art Serviss, played for the Galt team that challenged for the Stanley Cup. It was 1909?
Yeah, 1909, 1910.
So, and
I've got some team pictures.
Rob actually brought some photos along of his,
Yeah.
he'd be your great-great-grandfather? Is that
No,
correct? Great-grandfather,
Yeah,
okay.
my dad's grandfather.
And this morning I mentioned Ernie Lifferton, and what I forgot to mention then was his great-grandson is David Lifferton, who played in the NHL. So there's a lot of, for a city that really isn't known for its hockey, maybe first and foremost, Windsor's got a rich heritage. So why don't you start off just by talk a little bit about your great-grandfather and your dad and their experiences.
Okay. Again, I really didn't know about my great-grandfather actually until about a few years ago when actually I put a course together at the college, an elective. I taught at St. Clair College, and I still do actually part-time. But I put a hockey elective together, and I started doing some research and talked to my dad, and my dad said, well, my grandfather, his grandfather actually played way back in his day and was a really good hockey player. And so again, I started doing some research, and then my dad actually got some pictures that I didn't even know he had. So I've really learned a lot, actually, when you look at just the history of the game and really the history of my own family and the roots. From Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, so that's where actually my parents are from. And my dad, well, again, his grandfather played hockey. My dad's father didn't, but then the three brothers all did. And actually, the one brother, Tom, played in the World Hockey League and in the Western Hockey League out west. The oldest brother ended up playing for the Philadelphia Ramblers in the East Coast Hockey League. So they're all over the place, actually. And then my dad ended up here. My dad played for the Estevan Bruins in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Played in the Memorial Cup, I think 1958, with the Regina Pats and Red Berenson and those guys. Signed with the Leafs. Didn't quite make the Leafs back then. They were pretty strong, and ended up playing senior hockey here in Windsor. Won, like Bob said, the Allen Cup in 1963. I was fortunate. I was there. I was a year old, so I got to see it. I don't remember it, but I got to see it. My dad became actually the coach of the Spitfires here. Again, when I look back now, being a little bit older, I realize what a fortunate life I've had in the hockey world, in the sense where I always relate it now to Wayne Gretzky actually had my dream, and my dream, or his dream, was actually my life. My life was actually growing up. My dad played with the Detroit Red Wing alumni. I used to get cigars, beers, towels for Gordie Howe, Ted Lindsay, Bill Gadsby, all those guys at the old Olympia. Every Sunday morning, I would skate with Mark Howe, Marty Howe, before the big boys would come on the ice from usually around 11 till 12:30 with the Red Wing alumni. So that was kind of my youth here growing up, and my dad coached the Spitfires and then went on to coach St. Clair College here in Windsor. And again, I just grew up with it, so again, it's been in my family, really in me since I was born. And it took me to the OHL, and I didn't quite make it. to my dream, the NHL. So then I went to school. And from school, I thought, hey, I'm going to go over to Europe. Had a great experience over there for about 20 years. Became a national coach, so I went to a whole bunch of different countries, like Perry here, participating in world championships. And then I moved home at 50, got into the minor hockey scene, and I started teaching at the college in the sport rec management program. And created this elective that I was telling you about, and then I got, 3 years ago, introduced to somebody that had this new academy actually in the WFCU, and I knew that there was a huge market for international players wanting to come to play actually at these prep schools or these academies, and it's kind of a new wave of development here in Canada and even the US. So again, we started that up 2 years ago. We've been pretty successful at A21 Academy. We play schools like Upper Canada College. We'll be playing this year. St. Andrews is on our schedule. We're in the Ridley tournament, so those kind of schools. But kids are on the ice every day for 10 months. They're in the weight room and they'll play about 60, 70 games. Perry's out once a week working with our goalies. So Perry works a little bit with us, so he knows the program. But I would say for the most part, yeah, it's been pretty special to me. Just all the amazing people. Like when I was driving here, I got a text message from actually another Windsor, Danny Seaman, and he's at the International Hockey Championships in Slovakia. And he's sitting next to my old assistant coach with the national program, Bo Subra, who played in the OHL and is a Czech. And they're over there doing the International Coaching Symposium. So just the network and the people I've met, it's been pretty special to me.
Perry, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background in the game and how you got to where you are?
My story's a lot different than Robb's. My story started a journey when I was very young. I was born in Truro, Nova Scotia, and if you look in the history books about hockey in Nova Scotia, especially black hockey in Nova Scotia, all the churches used to have a hockey team. So they used to call it the CHL, the Colored Hockey League. And Stanley Maxwell was my cousin. He was actually the second black player to play in the NHL. And I was really amazed when I came to Windsor that TSN actually did a story on him, and most people don't know who that is. But if you look at Stanley Maxwell, he had a great career in hockey. When I was a kid, I played. When I moved to Ontario, my parents had no clue what was going on in sports, so my hockey career ended when I was 8 years old. So I always had this really burning desire to continue the sport because I just absolutely love hockey. I started coaching at the University of Windsor when I was in my 20s, because that's when I could afford to buy my own gear, and I started playing again. Unfortunately, my path to anywhere was over as a player, but I knew that there were other avenues to really fulfill those dreams. So I started working at the University of Windsor on the women's program that was new in '98. It was really raw, but I knew that in hockey, there's so many avenues to really open up your mind and really explore what can be possible. So not having played pro like Rob, I still knew that there are other avenues to get to where you want to get to. So at the University of Windsor, my very first year with the goaltender, I knew she was very good. It was on the women's side, so her team was not very good, but I knew this goaltender was, and she ended up being CIS Goalie of the Year. So that started to open up some doors for me, because development is development, and everybody, kind of knocks the women's game, but the women's game gave me all the prospects that I ended up getting to where I am today. So I started working with Canada's national team. I've won, I've had 6 events with Canada, won 6, lucky enough to be on staff for 6 gold and 1 silver. At one of those events, just after the Olympics, the Sochi Olympics, I got an email from my boss that New Zealand wanted development for their goaltending. And I personally, I thought it was a joke, because I thought New Zealand really didn't hockey, right? So jumped on a plane and went down there. My very first camp, I had 6 goalies from the entire country. You have to imagine there are 2 million people in New Zealand, and it's 2 islands, and they have 6 rinks for the whole country. So having 6 goalies was a little bit shocking. When you're in Canada, go any city, you're gonna have 600 goalies in a big city. So my very last camp, what I did, I stayed there a month the first time. Hockey Canada sent me down. And then after that, I made my contacts with New Zealand, and I went down for the next few years. And my very last camp, I had 23 goalies, which was pretty amazing when you think the entire country, there might be 30 goalies total. So to get 23 to fly in to one place and you know, really try to hone their craft worked out really well. And from there, I started working with the New Zealand Ice Hockey Federation. So all their national events, I would get to go with the team and really try to get that country to win medals. They started in Division 3B, which is as low as you can get, and I was lucky enough to be able to have some goalies that really got it. And if you know hockey, goaltending doesn't really matter unless you don't have it. So for New Zealand, they were really, really raw in goaltending. They were giving up 8, 10, 12 goals. First tournament I went to, U18s, I watched the tournament, they gave up 22 goals in 3 games. So the way it works there, you play, there's 4 teams in a division when you're that low. You play your 4 games and then they hand out the medals and you go home. Or there's 6 teams, play the 5 games, hand out the medals, you go home. You don't get to fight for your medal until you get to the senior men's. And you know, it was really fun to watch this program grow. So I've been to countries that actually have rinks like South Africa and Iceland and Beijing and Taiwan. Like the funny part about the rink in South Africa in Cape Town, the rink is actually inside a casino. So you have to go through casino security to get to the rink. So we actually won a gold medal there, and it's one of New Zealand's first gold medals. My favorite story is there's a goalie that I worked with down there, a female. She ended up playing Division I NCAA from that little country, New Zealand. She's actually New Zealand's most successful goaltender because she played at St. Lawrence University, and she was runner-up for Goalie of the Year a couple of years ago. So you take a lot of pride in coaching now. So, you know, for me, getting coaches to understand how to deal with goalies is my thing now. It's not about, don't have to know about goaltending, but you have to know that your goalies are working. So I was lucky enough to be with Bob. I don't know if you guys know, Bob's a goaltender. So we've met each other a couple times on the ice, and it's been a lot of fun. So this has been an absolute honor. I want to apologize for being late. I went to the South Campus first, but any questions about the global game and how fast it's growing, I'd love to answer those questions.
You can touch on that too, Rob. Obviously, different era when you went to the Netherlands. And the Netherlands has had some limited success. They played in the top pool a couple times.
Well, they played once actually, 1980 in Lake Placid, but that team was mostly filled with Dutch Canadians. But
how has that program grown in the time?
It's actually gone down actually in the Netherlands. Yeah, it's they really didn't invest in their own youth programs. So again, back in the early 80s, and when I got there in 87, hockey was pretty good in the Netherlands, but they just didn't invest in their own kids and brought over too many imports and didn't give the local kids enough opportunity to play. And where they're at right now, I don't know, they're down in one of those pools, 2B or somewhere down there. But yeah, the game really hasn't grown like I think they had the opportunities for sure with the Olympics in 1980.
I could speak on that a little bit. The biggest problem with those countries is once they start to taste a little success, and people love to go to those countries anyway because they're beautiful, so then they start playing the imports more and they stop thinking about the grassroots program. So with every time they go to a world championship, the players have to pay. So for a player to go to a world championship, it's $5,000 minimum to go anywhere. Even if it's at home, it costs them that much because they have to pay for everything. So when the countries that are trying to get better and the players will go there and play in their pro leagues and their imports and they stay long enough, they can play for the national teams. Well, instead of developing your kids, they'll take these imports and try to win. It's just a recipe for disaster because grassroots kids now, they can't play the game. So that's where, you know, guys like Rob have really tried to, you know, give back to those communities to make sure that work at the grassroots level first and let those kids grow up, and then you're going to have better national teams and better junior teams and things like that. But it's just really hard because these countries want to win so bad, they don't understand the value of, you know, growing those grassroots programs. like they do here in Canada.
You know,
Where are your academy kids coming from?
They're actually coming from all over. We've got 16 internationals, so I was just telling Bob, we have Tarasenko's younger brother is with us, Val from Russia, so we have 4 Russians, 3 Czechs, a German, a Dutch kid, 4 Australians, and 1 kid from actually Iceland, who's the captain of the national under 18 from Iceland, so with a bunch of local kids. So in all we have 24 kids in our prep team. And we're expanding now where we're going to start actually this coming year a JV team, so kind of grade 9, grade 10, which will be a lot more local kids. But actually, speaking of New Zealand, we've just signed the so-called Sidney Crosby from New Zealand. It's crazy when you think about it, but he's actually going to be a grade 9. He's coming all the way to Canada for the next 4 years because he wants.
So where do these kids live when they're?
We built them out, so they're all with host families here. But I think the biggest thing, like I coached AAA hockey here for 3 years at the midget level, and I've been in the prep scene or the academy scene for the last 2 years. And when I was in Europe, I ran national academies in the Netherlands, where the kids are on the ice every day, and you just see the difference in growth and development of players. When kids are, in a structured program, they're on the ice every day. There's a weight program. Again, when I was in minor hockey, it's twice a week in the evening, 9 o'clock at night, and it's a lot about the games, the showcases, the agents. It's just a different scene where I don't think it really leads its way, I think, to the optimal, development curve that I think we're seeing when we look at the game today. Like the Finns or the Swedes, I think they're just so far ahead of where we're at here in this country, or even the Americans. It's just.
And they're tiny little countries.
They're tiny little countries, but it's more about the long term and developing kids, where we're kind of at 15. If you're not drafted, it becomes pretty hard to get into, say, elite programs. So it's, I don't know. I think we should definitely be thinking about maybe changing our model here in this country, because I think when you look across the border at the U.S. program, and like I said, with the Swedes and the Finns and what they're doing with even goalies and stuff like that, that we could learn a lot.
So there's a real big reason that I think that these other countries like Sweden and Finland are so they seemed a little bit more advanced than we are. It's a lot easier to control those smaller countries. You have 3,500 hockey players in Finland and Sweden, where you have 360,000 kids playing hockey in Canada, and the coaches are allowed to have so many different opinions on how to coach the game. So in Finland, because I was there, I saw it, it is so structured. You have a national program, then a regional program, then your local programs, and they all report to each other, so the coaching is very consistent. So when you have that every step of the way from minor hockey, like in Canada, minor hockey, you're lucky to get a goalie coach for a third of the teams that play minor hockey. And that's just the same thing in coaching too. A lot of them are parents, volunteers, things like that. In Finland, it is very structured from novice and up. So you get that consistent messaging all the way up, so the development plan is already in place when you're 5, 6 years old. So it's a lot easier for the kids to buy in. Where in Canada, you can go from Windsor to Amherstburg to LaSalle to Belle River, and the coaching concepts are all different. So the kids go from one to the other, and they don't really know what system they're going to follow.
But we have more heart. But we have more heart.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry.
Those myths are starting to be exposed, because kids are kids. That's the beauty of, for both of us, seeing it all over the world. Kids are no different anywhere you go. They really are. They just play. So when it comes to the development piece of the game, the U.S. just has way more resources than we do. And that's why I've known it for years. It's just a matter of time. And that's what's happening.
Is it the business model for Canadian junior hockey, though, where by the age of 16, you're in OHL, have the elite program for kids 16 to 20, like they're isolating the top elite prospects in the U.S. all in Plymouth, Michigan.
Yeah.
and developing those players for the elite level, whereas it's so dispersed in Canada and watered down to some degree, like you said, because
Yeah.
of so many different coaching ideologies for kids at that age.
And let's face it, the biggest problem I see in the OHL, I can only speak for the OHL, are scouts. We have a ton of scouts that go out, and I'm telling you, they miss kids. They miss them all the time. Martin St. Louis was not drafted. So that goes to show you that it's a human error in what you're missing. You never know.
It's all the way up.
Absolutely.
My 12-year-old was just at rep tryouts, and he's a high-end house league player. And, you know, at the tryout, you're watching it, and there's 5 kids that stand out, there's 5 kids that are in way over their head, and there are 15 kids on the ice that, how are you going to pick between these guys? Because they're all essentially the same.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and I think a lot has
you
to-
watch them for an hour, and then there are cuts.
Yeah, but again, you have, whether it's volunteer coaches or say parents that are coaching, and a little bit the political scenes within the organizations themselves, where, again, working for a federation, like I worked for, 13 years for the Dutch Federation, you know, as a national coach, you're determining more who's going where than where here, you know, guys are picking guys because, you know, it's become a business at the minor hockey level. I mean,
It's massive.
I was there for 3 years and there's absolutely no synergy from top to bottom.
Well, and I'm from Oakville. The 12-year-olds, they have 7 rep teams and 14 house league teams.
Yeah,
Why do you need 7 rep teams?
yeah,
It's not developing anybody.
yeah.
Even in this area, like you have Sun County and Windsor, yet if you were to amalgamate those 2 centers, I think you'd be able to tell more which kids are really rising to the top, because I think between the 2, kids at tryouts, they'll go back and forth and back and forth. And then you never really see which kids are really the top of the top, right? And that's where when they go to Toronto, Oakville, you get slaughtered because it's so inconsistent here.
What's the role of academics? Like, do they all go to the same high school?
Actually, we have with our program, yeah, the school is actually built into the WFCU, so it's actually 5 classrooms, open concept. Kids it's all online, so all the curriculum is embedded in Canvas, so kind of like Blackboard. Real life teachers. They're basically grade school from 8 till 9 on the ice, but I'd say the prep team itself is 8 to 8:45. They do SAT prep for the NCAA. Then they're 9 o'clock on the ice till 10:30. Back upstairs 10 to 11. 10 to 11 till, 3:40. They're in the classroom, and then they're in the weight room. Say 3:45 to 4 till 5, and their day's done. So we played this year 70 games. When you look in Canada, we played Upper Canada College. We played in the National Independent School Championship, so that was St. Andrews and Upper Canada College, with say the top 14, 15 schools in Eastern Canada. Bishop from Quebec, Stanstead from Quebec, Newbridge from Halifax. So there's about, I would say, 14 or 15 really good, say, academies or prep schools in Eastern Canada. And then again, when you go out west, it's actually, basically it's taken over, say, AAA hockey, pretty much, with all the kids getting drafted now out of those academies in Alberta and BC. You know, you have Notre Dame it's been around for a long time in Saskatchewan. So that combination, and it's a lot, I don't know how many have been to Sweden, but they've got the hockey academies all connected to their schools over there.
So I don't understand, do the teachers, are they employed by the academy?
Yeah, I teach and I coach, run the whole hockey program, so it's a full-time job.
And so then you're certified by the local Board of Education?
We are under the Ministry of Ontario. It's the same Ontario curriculum that we teach, so we get audited by the ministry every year. Like, we're no different than St. Andrews or Upper Canada College, but when you call it a prep school, it's all, say, high academics. It's all university prep, so we don't offer any applied courses or elective. It's all high academics.
Is it similar in Quebec?
Pardon me?
Is it similar in Quebec?
No, Quebec's a little bit down. I mean, they have them too. I mean, you've got Stansted and Bishop. We played against Bishop this year. Pardon me?
LCC.
LCC, ULIS. But again, I think in Quebec they go, what, 9 to 11?
Yeah,
And then they've got the, what is it, the, yeah, CJEP. So actually, I've just signed 4 kids from Quebec, actually grade 11s, have decided to come to us for 2 years. It's, I don't know, it's really crazy when I think, like, I signed the last week 3 kids from Austria. It is definitely a huge market. I know when my boss and I first started this, there was a lot of skepticism here in Windsor, and a lot of people didn't believe that actually, say, an academy or prep school would work here. But when you think Ridley and all the schools down to 401 have been around for ages. But the biggest thing to me is there's such an international market for kids that want to come to Canada and do that combination and play a fairly high level of hockey. And at the same time, combine that with academics. You know, the parents are looking more and more, I think, to across the border. People, I think, and even if you look at the numbers, the percentages of whether it's U.S. kids coming in the NHL or the NCAA kids, it's just a better, I think, development model than, say, the OHL. I played in the OHL, but I think it's more geared to practice and a few less games and getting kids at a little bit of an older age where, you know, like you talk about kids, like we're picking kids at 15, 16, and, you know, there's a lot of kids that haven't even hit puberty yet, and we're already writing them off. So again, if they haven't, you know, hit puberty, or they've got, you know, I've done a little bit of research in just, you know, birth dates. And if you go through the birth dates, it's actually, it's mind-boggling how many December babies aren't drafted. The percentage is so low. If you're a December baby, you might as well forget about the OHL, you know, because it's usually the first 6-7 months is head and shoulders the highest percentage. And that's, again, when you think about it, we're writing, you know, kids off just because of their birthday. Yeah, it's true.
It's true in senior hockey, in our beer league hockey too. We're trying to get a 75 division.
Have you graduated kids yet?
No, this is actually our 2nd year, so. But I've got a couple kids going, they've signed in the OJ and the CCHL, and hopefully Tarasenko is going to the main camp of a null team in Shreveport. So it's going to take time, but I just see the level of hockey, like what we played this year. It's real good hockey. Like we played Lake Forest out of Chicago that had DeBrincat and Gilmore out of Cleveland. So we played a lot of the U.S. schools too, and it's definitely a different brand of hockey. I think the biggest thing, we played actually Victory Honda this week exhibition, and I was talking to their coach, and that's U18 AAA. And he said really the 2 best teams he's played all year, or actually the last few years, is actually Shattuck and St. Andrews. And he loves playing actually these academies or prep schools just because of the speed of the game, because the kids are in better shape. We skate every day. It's impossible for a minor hockey team that practices twice a week to keep up with our kids, because, you know, you've seen it. These kids go hard every day for an hour and a half, and then they're in the weight room. Minor hockey just isn't offering that. So
what's the cost for the parents of having their child enrolled in the program?
I'd say a local kid's probably anywhere between, depending on scholarship, 16 to 20, and the internationals could be anywhere between 25 to, say, 35. And we're kind of cheap. When you look at, say, the big schools like St. Andrews and that, then I'd say you'd be looking at anywhere between 30 and 50. It's become an affluent game for sure.
How do we fix that?
How do we fix that? I don't know. That's a hard one.
It all sort of goes back to your Nova Scotia roots and stuff, right? There's an entry level that a lot of kids can't get to anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's the same with all sports. So I've talked to the people from the Canadian Olympic Association who say we're not getting the best athletes. We're getting the athletes whose families can afford to put them into the sports. And that's one of the reasons why they think we don't win as many medals as we could, because kids who can't afford it don't get the chance.
Perry, this is a side question. Is that the premiere of the Willie O'Ree documentary a couple weeks ago?
There is part of that, yeah.
And that was pretty good. I thought it was going to be a movie because I went to the Terry Sock Circle and it ended up being just a documentary. I didn't know, by the way, he revealed in there that he was blind in one eye for most of his career. Impact of, and I got to talk to him, he was there and stuff like that. Any impact?
Absolutely, great question. A lot of impact. I remember the first time I went to minor hockey to coach, and nobody really knew who I was at the time. And I could see, I was at Tecumseh Arena, and the parents were all up top, and I could see this hands flying everywhere. And by the time I was done the session, the parents were actually at the boards, and they're like, "Who are you, and what are you doing with my son? Do you know how much money I've spent on my kid to develop him?" And I said, "Your kid can't skate first." And I said, the next thing I heard was, "This isn't basketball." And I went, "I'm a terrible basketball player." But I said, "Goaltending is what I do for a living." And I said, "If you give me the time to work with your kid, just watch." And then they watched another session, and it was like, all of a sudden their kids get better. It's all about learning how to work with the kids, gain the trust of the kids, and watch them get better. Like Robb's goalies, when I first started working, they were pretty raw. And within 3 months, they were starting to get it and really trust it. Now, his program, I think, with any program, if you have goaltending, that program moves up. So it has been a struggle. I don't really spend a lot of time on the struggles that I've had in hockey, and I've had them at every level, not only as a coach, but as a player as well. Like I've gone to play in tournaments, and they throw things on the ice, that kind of stuff. All those stories are true. It's how you deal with it. For me, the best way to deal with stuff like that is just win, right? And I really learned to win despite of myself, and to coach despite of myself. It's never about me. That's why it makes it so easy for me to make the kids much better than I could have ever been. And that's why I've had success. You just put the nose down and you go.
So this question, just for my interest, how old are you, gentlemen?
How old?
Yeah.
57.
50?
Yeah, I'm 59.
58.
You're all too young.
Young for what?
I need a 65-year-old goaltender. That's what
I'll be there. I'll be there. I got lots left. Knees and hips are good.
Yeah. Question, Terry. There is a New Zealand connection with Sir. We used to have a member out there in New Zealand. He was an announcer and broadcaster. I don't know if he's retired by now since you went in there, but his name is Ed Mason. Is there any resonance with that?
But I didn't meet a lot of the broadcasters. I went to some of their NZIHL games, and there was a broadcast, but I didn't know who was doing it. It's really something, because there's such a sports country. Like rugby, of course, is the #1 sport, but their passion for hockey it's unbelievable. Like it's just no different than what you would see here in Canada. It's a different game because they have not learned the skills, and you don't know what you don't know. And that's where we go down there. It's like, oh boy, but it's very entertaining to watch. But it's a little bit, from the Canadian perspective, a little bit comical. Yes.
Of all these countries you've been to over the next 10 years, who's going to take that step up?
Great Britain. They've already done it. All right, now Ireland's getting a rink, which is going to be, Ireland is getting a rink. That's going to happen. I really believe, I don't know what happened. Wayne Gretzky was supposed to put a rink in Melbourne, but it didn't. I think it's Adelaide, I'm sorry. And I think it's kind of fallen apart, so I don't really know why. I think Australia could take steps. The problem is they've had a lot of Canadian and American coaches go down there. The problem with some of those coaches, they lie about who they are. When I got down there was a guy that was saying he coached at Team Canada and he did this and he did that, and it's like, okay, do you guys realize the internet, you can kind of find out everything? So when I got down there, I heard his name. I was like, I've been in Canada my whole life, never heard your name before. So what he was, his was still a great accomplishment. He played in the Spengler Cup for Team Canada, which is still a big deal. But he made people believe that he played for the national team of Canada, which is different. And so he said it was a level 1 coach from Canada. So I kind of geared them to ask him about the paperwork. What he said was his paperwork got destroyed in the earthquake in Christchurch. I said, pretty sure they can get another copy. So I watched him run a practice, and it was abysmal. I said, there's absolutely no way that this guy is an HP1 coach from Canada. And so, because I was watching him, people could kind of hear that I was really disappointed in what he was doing. And shortly after that, he left the country. So if these countries, they really don't know who's who, right? You can have all the accolades in the world, doesn't mean you can go down there and coach. Because the thing is, they're very proud about what they do. And you have to kind of fit in first, and then you can kind of work with them.
But I think actually, like what I'm learning, and again, I signed this kid from New Zealand, I signed 3 Australians, all came over in grade 9 this year. So again, I think the parents are realizing more and more, if there's any hope at all, they're getting them out of the country as soon as they can, because they know that window for development is rather small. It's maybe 4 to 6 years, and they would sooner have them here in a real hockey environment than have them over there where there's just not the competition, or like you said, for the most part, not a lot of good coaching. So
yeah. Well, the number 1 coach in New Zealand is from Hungary. Hungary's a great country, but I don't think they've done a whole lot in hockey.
No, Hungary's actually pretty good there, I've been at the World Championships. Hungary's pretty good.
What do you guys think about China? They're going to be hosting the next Olympics. I know you played the junior team.
Yeah, we played the junior
team. And your national teams played against them, and you're cool.
Yeah.
Are they going to be, I mean, from what Kevin Westgarth, who's a local guy who's now the vice president of international development for the NHL, he said, between you and me, we're not missing the Olympics in China, meaning the NHL. So the odds are China's going to be playing. It's not going to be like Korea got to play against lesser guys. Chinese team's going to have to play the real guys.
Well, the KHL is taking over that program, so their development piece is going to rise very quickly. They played against New Zealand in senior men's, and what I saw, the players were pretty skilled. I'm going to say their skating is not quite there, but hands are good.
It was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Hockey sense.
The hockey sense isn't there, and the goaltending's not there. But now that the KHL's taken over, they've got a couple of years still to do it, so I think they're going to be okay. And now they're going after the Chinese Americans and the Chinese Canadians to come over,
kind of what
live
the
there.
Dutch did.
Yeah.
When you compare you're talking about that 3B and 2B levels, how does that translate to what would that be in Canada? What sort of player in Canada would that
Junior
be?
C, Junior B.
Junior C?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like actually when I was coaching the national, I coached 2 years, I was the assistant coach with the senior team. And we had actually another local guy out of Chatham, a Dutch Canadian, who's playing in Fort Wayne. Jamie Schaafsma. Yeah. And he was actually our best player, head and shoulders. And he was a really good Junior B player here in Chatham. So, gives you a good indication. A really good Junior B player would be a good national team player at that level.
You guys both have CIS experience, or U Sports as they call it now. Where does that fit into this equation, and why don't we care about U Sports in this country?
Yeah, that was disappointing too, because I played 5 years there. We played at 80 Knox and nobody ever showed up, and it was really good. I mean, when I finished there, the whole team was OHL. I think it's just the culture within school here, where again, across the border, you know, when you look at grade school and high school and how, sport is promoted, and over here, it's just not in university sports. The fans and the support, it's kind of disappointing when you think really the quality, at least with hockey, it's top-notch hockey. But at least at that level, it just doesn't generate a lot of interest.
Well, I've had guys from the University of Windsor get pro jobs after they're done their CIS career.
Yeah.
So I think it's the best kept secret in hockey, CIS hockey. U Sports now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ron?
Do you have any info on Jack Hughes? Could he be the next Crosby?
Jack Hughes.
We'll see. Lights out. I think he's incredible. And Jack's a defenseman too, right? So
his brother is.
Oh, his brother, I'm sorry. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Because I find with some of the players, when they're playing it with their peers, it's a lot easier to maneuver on the ice. That's where I think Kako playing in the men's worlds, it's men out there. It's a lot different than you're playing your U18s. You go to take that step with the senior men's worlds. It was like Mikey going to play for Vancouver for that one game. Even though he really wasn't prepared for it, the team didn't play well. He just understood right away, wow, what a difference from playing major junior to now playing an NHL game against San Jose. He was still playing hockey, so they learn a lot. You'll know more once they start playing against the men.
I know from talking to Dylan Larkin, when he went to the World Championships when he was still at Michigan, he said that's when the first time he knew he could play pro. As he said, he always thought he could. But until, as Perry said, he got out there on the ice against NHL players and found out what it was like. That was the first time he ever knew in his mind that he could do it.
Yeah, one of the things on my bucket list is to try and attend a World Championship at one of these lower divisions. I was wondering if you could touch on what the atmosphere, not necessarily if he was a fan, but just the atmosphere in participating or being involved in one of those tournaments is with people from all over the world.
It's interesting. They probably have less fans than a U Sports game. It's family and friends that dare to make the trip. We're talking 3B.
Oh, 3B.
Right down there. Once you get in the 2A, now you're getting fans. You're playing in better venues. Like in 3B, the venues, we played in Mexico, and the ice surface is, it's not, you know what I mean? It's just not, it's not their thing. So you can find that even in New Zealand, a lot of the rinks, they're rough. Like the dressing rooms, I had some players come here and see a Canadian dressing room. They thought it was the Taj Mahal. Because, you know, where they play in New Zealand, one of their best rinks, the dressing room is it's a closet. Like they hang their gear on a string, and you know, there's 3 showers for the whole place. It's really, we're spoiled here.
We got some rinks like that in Kingston. So.
Yeah, it's a great experience. I mean, the ones I went to, again, it's kind of a little bit of a celebration because you're bringing, like, we would have 6 countries. So again, and they're all, you know, coming from all over, whether it be Japan or say the Eastern Europe, Lithuania. But I mean, really, all these kids and all these people, and mostly parents, are coming together for 10 days, and you're playing games, and yeah, there's a lot of exchange, and I don't know. To me, it was always a great experience because I would say hockey people are, for the most part, very social and pretty open to meet new people and stuff like that, and talk about the game and talk about their country, and you know, so I think it was for me it was always an awesome experience. I really look forward to going to strange or different places over the years. I can remember going to Yugoslavia, and we didn't know actually if the tournament was going to go through because of the war situation there in Novi Sad. And we went there and we played the tournament. Like 3 months later, the bridges we were walking over got blown up. But it was the people in Yugoslavia were great hosts, and you know, it was always a real good experience.
From the team and the players, the coaching aspect, it is great. Like, don't get me wrong, it is an awesome experience. I'm just saying that for somebody looking from the outside, you'd kind of go, why do they keep doing this? But it's the passion of the people that put these events on. There's a lot of work that goes into these, and they are more than happy to do it. Yeah. And like you said, when you go to these countries, you get treated like royalty. It's awesome. Yeah. That one.
Yes.
You mentioned underprivileged kids can't play hockey, and that's a growing mass. I'm working on a project to get artificial ice outdoor rinks, because I see hundreds of rinks that aren't used because the ice is shell ice. You know, natural ice just doesn't work anymore. Yeah. I assume in Ontario and in Montreal especially. And I approached the Molson Foundation because it costs money to put in an artificial ice rink. And their condition is simple. If kids can't afford to play hockey, we'll put an artificial ice. It costs millions of dollars.
Right.
Maybe 1 or 2, whatever it is. And The West Island of Montreal, for instance, has no artificial ice rinks. And it costs, you mentioned what it costs to play hockey. So, but I'm getting negative feedback from all the people. I don't know, just, who, who's gonna run that? All the minute details. My son plays hockey well, he played in Frank Mahalich's kid, but that's another story, my grandson. They have an artificial ice right next to his school. The janitor goes out, and when it snowed, I was out there skating with him, he cleans the ice, and away they go again. And then they can leave the ice as long as they want. So it works so good in Toronto, there's 25 or 50 of them. In Montreal, you have got 5. And you haven't got any in the English part of Montreal.
Yeah.
And what, this is a problem I got. How do I solve it?
So internationally, are they using artificial ice? How are they doing it in these interesting places?
Outdoor rinks I'm talking.
I know. Well,
in some of the countries, like I would say, especially Eastern Europe more, like I was in Lithuania and Estonia and countries like that, where you've seen more artificial rinks because of the weather.
Outside though?
Yeah, outside.
Yeah, okay.
But again, more into Western Europe, no, it's really become an affluent game, and it doesn't matter, like, I'm talking to parents and kids almost on a daily basis, and even over there, it's become, ice is expensive to make.
So that's why
and the skates are expensive, and the sticks are expensive, and it's almost impossible, like, when we grew up, what it cost. Like, I go back even to my own development, and the biggest thing I remember is I played travel hockey all the way through before I went to juniors, and I never once stayed in a hotel. When you see these kids today, it's every other weekend. They're racing down the 401 and they're staying in nice big hotels and the whole thing. And again, when we grew up, how expensive are the sticks or the skates? And what it is now, it's become big business. So. And it's no different here, or if it's Germany or Switzerland or Japan or Australia, or it's.
Well, these foundations are there. They have the money to do it, as long as the conditions are right.
Yeah, but it is a problem. I mean, going back to your question or comment, it's there's a lot of good athletes that aren't getting the opportunity because there's just not the funding or they can't support it.
In the southern hemisphere countries like South Africa and New Zealand and Australia, they all play inline. They don't care about trying to get extra points. They all play inline. It's unbelievable. But the problem with inline is the game. It's a different game, right? There's no checking. There's none of that. So when they switch over to play hockey, they got great hands. They can't skate because it's wheels instead of ice. So there's no edge control that you have to have. So that's where a lot of the players are very skilled scoring with their hands, but they can never get there. Or catch up with the game when they start to move. They try to move up. The game's just too fast for them.
So the hands are more important than the skating, or which comes, or both of them are important.
Both of them are important, but the hands are great unless you can't get there.
You got to skate.
That's right.
Well, in today's game, you have to skate. That's number one.
100%.
Rob, question on staffing, like for your school. I'm a retired teacher from St. Mike's. I noticed in a lot of your talks.
From St. Mike's, we played them this year.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a job?
70 years old. I'm done.
Part-time.
You mentioned St. Andrews and Upper Canada. I didn't hear you mention St. Mike's. And they've fallen on hard times the last couple of years in terms of getting coaches, either on staff.
Well, they got Danny Brown now, so they got Connor Brown's dad.
Yeah, and before that they had Al Sims, who was with the Bruins. And those, we're not talking about guys who work at the school. They have a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
What's your situation? Because that's really key, even to attract players to your schools. Who have you got?
Oh, for sure. But I think, I talked to Dan this year at St. Mike's. We played them a few times, actually in Cleveland, and then actually in the national championships we played them. But he's taken over that program, so I know they had a little bit the scandal there this year and had to shut it down for a few months. But he's taking over that program, so I think they have somebody that's a quality guy running the St. Mike's program. But I think overall, that's really. It doesn't matter really if it's a junior team or a pro team. It's really who comes in and who's your leader and is going to say, hey, this is our vision and how we want to grow our players, and lay everything out is the key to any program when you want to grow it. So you know, New Zealand, if they want to grow their program, then they need somebody that has a long-term vision and is going to invest in real good quality development.
The big problem down there, the same things happen in Australia. The people that run the programs initially were there for the hockey, and then all of a sudden their parents, just like here, where they see an opportunity to get into the management side because their kids in hockey, then they come and they kind of backdoor everybody else. So the political scene changes all the time. So that's become part of the problem now, where, you know, I don't have kids in hockey, so I never have an agenda. But you have a parent, all of a sudden he's the head of the board, and his kid wants to play, or his two kids want to play. So you've got kids that are actually better, they're not getting an opportunity because this guy's kids are playing. Then when their kids are done, they're done. So there's no consistency.
Yeah.
So that's becoming a real problem.
So I got probably time for one more question, and then go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned the case of players born in December who don't have a chance. This has actually come up in a couple of previous meetings. It's referred to as a relative age effect, I think.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on how to deal with that?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is that when we look at something like that, then we're not, I think, giving kids at a younger age the opportunity to play maybe at their more like within, say, maybe 6 months or something, that we're splitting kids up. We're writing kids off. I think even when we select kids now, because on the minor hockey side, you know, we have to select kids in, what is it, April for next year. And again, what can happen as kids get older, especially, you know, in their teenage years, is I mean, I even know myself, I was 14, and in, you know, a real short period, I went from, I don't know, 5'10" to about 6'3", you know. So again, we're picking kids like 6 months before hockey even starts, where again, a lot can happen in the summer with kids. But again, the financial thing, we want to make sure we got parents locked in, and, you know, the budget's covered and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, I experienced it for 3 years, again, coming from Europe, and I saw a lot of development. I was in Finland and Firomäki and Sweden and all the different, say, top countries. And coming back here, and I got into minor hockey, I was disappointed, and just, I think the lack of just synergy and vision and really the whole operation of these organizations. I was disappointed, so I was like, when this opportunity came across, it's, I think, something that's really good for me, and it's something that I believe in. So.
Well, I have the toughest job, is to cut off conversation. But thanks very much, Perry and Rob. Just amazing. So, are you all set to give a 5-minute stretch break here? You did a fine job this morning.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I got these pictures of my great-grandma. I don't know how many are historians or whatever, but if you want to see them, I brought them here for you. So I'll leave them here for.
Let's take a 3-minute break.